Welcome to Kebari in Focus. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at the Karasu Kebari, which is made with the body of crow herl from a crow's wing. This fly first started out as a bit of an experiment. We produced the Karasu rods at Discover Tenkara, and I had the idea of, hey, why not use some crow feather and make a Karasu Kebari. Karasu in Japanese meaning crow. So without further ado, let's get on with the tying. The body of this fly is going to be made from herl that we get from the secondary feathers on a wing. So the long feathers that you can see, the really sort of pointy long feathers that would be the ends of the wing, are the primaries. The next set of feathers in from that are what we call the secondaries. So if I pull one of those out, you can see they've got some nice long fibres on there. So if I just pull out a secondary feather there, this is what we're looking for, these long fibres that we can use to make a body. Before we can put those feathers in, I obviously need to lay on a bed of thread. So I'm using 6/0 uni thread in the colour Camel, which is a nice mid-brown colour. I'm going to run that right down the hook. The hook, if you're interested, is a fish-on nymph wet hook. It's a nice straight shanked hook with a nice long barbless point to it. So the position I've got myself to there, I'm about a good third of the way down the hook with my thread, and I've got 2/3 of the hook left for body. I'm going to take a few of these feathers from the Karasu crow secondary, and that's maybe 7 or 8 fibres there. You want a good number. It depends on the size of the hook, and we're going to tie them in by the pointy ends, the tips, like this, so it's all sticking out off the front of the fly. And then I'm going to run the thread down in touching turns right to the base of the fly. You can vary how fat you want your body by the number of turns or the number of passes of thread you put in this area. So if you want a really fat fly or you want a tapered body, you can form the shape with the thread. Then when you lay these fibres over the top of that, it'll follow the shape you've made. So we've got fibres at this end, we've got thread at this end. What I want to do now is I want to wind these fibres around in the opposite direction to my turns of thread. So if I made clockwise turns of thread, I want to make anti-clockwise turns of the crow herl, or vice versa, whichever way you wrap your thread. And it's quite a fiddly process, but when you get down to the bottom, you can catch that with your thread and form a little butt of whatever colour thread you've got. So if you decide to use a nice hot colour of thread, like a hot orange or red, you'll get a nice hot spot at the base there, like this. I'm then going to whip my thread up in open turns through the crow herl. This is very important. Crow herl's quite brittle, very brittle in fact, so it will break when you catch fish with it. But that's part of the magic of this fly. If you do the opposite turns of thread to the opposite turns of crow herl, you get this nice sort of intermeshed lockdown effect where every turn that goes this way with crow herl has got a turn of thread over the top of it, locking it down. So when you get nice toothy sort of trout, takes on this fly, it will have fibres break and they will start to unravel, but they can only unravel maybe quarter of a turn. So what you'll get is the more fish you get, the more sticky out bits on this fly you'll get, and it becomes a very tantalising fly after it's been used. I want to put a hackle on there now. I'm using a red game cock hackle. So I'm just going to prepare the feather by taking a few fibres off. If you can see that there, I've just left the bare stem. And I'm tying it with the light side of the feather up, so that when I tie it in, the light side of the feather faces towards the eye of the hook. So it faces towards me when I'm fishing. And that's a trick that myself and Paul picked up from Masami Sakakibara making his flies visible when he's fishing. Gives you better take detection, and it lets you see how your fly's fishing. And you'd be surprised on one of these sort of red game colours. It doesn't look much, but when you cast it in the water, it's surprising how visible it is when you tie it with the light side facing forward. So a good few turns there. This is as bushy as any dry fly, but it is going to be fished wet. And another nice tip, I've probably told this many times before, a half hitch tool makes a great tool just for getting feather fibres out of the way. And I've got to give credit to Go Ishi for that trick. It's a very neat little trick, so I can trim that off now. And again with the half hitch tool, if you don't own a half hitch tool, take the middle out of a big biro and you can achieve the same thing. So that lets me clear all that mess out of the way and get a nice neat head. And then a quick whip finish. And it doesn't hurt to have a dab of varnish or head cement on there either. If you like those hot coloured threads, that can be great as well. It really helps keep that vibrant colour. And if you really want to be obsessive, you can put a dab of cement to protect that bit of thread at the butt as well. Quick straighten out of those fibres. And there we're done. A Karasu Kebari.